Welcome everyone to this week's Founder Chat. I am Melanie Yu and I am one of the co-founders and managing partners at Volition, where we build capacity, connectivity, and knowledge in global startup ecosystems. I'm currently joining you from Montreal. We also have team members across Canada and in many other parts of the world as well. So these Founder Chats, if you haven't been to one before, essentially we have kind of 30 minutes to get to know a founder in our community. It's a casual conversation, interview style. But those who are joining us, whether you're joining us live or you're on IGTV or YouTube later, please feel free to chime in. Feel free to ask questions, to share your congratulations and excitement for the incredible founders that we work with. We really appreciate everyone being here and engaging with us. So I'm excited today because I get to speak to Stephanie Chen, who is the founder and CEO of myCareBase. And we first met Stephanie back in 2019. Back when we were doing live pitch events. I believe that you came to a Vancouver live pitch event at the time. Yeah, so I didn't get to be there for that one, unfortunately, but I know that you went on to place third at that particular pitch event, and you've done a ton of work on myCareBase, and there's been a lot of a lot going on, as we all know, over the last year and a half. You've been doing a lot, and then we saw you back again, and in 2021, you pitched at our BC Women's Showcase this past month, and you've also been working with some of our coaches over the last few months, I think. So excited to get to know, or to reconnect with you and get to know you a little bit better and get to know myCareBase a bit better. And so I'm just gonna do a really quick kind of like boilerplate, what is myCareBase, but then I'm gonna stop talking and hand this to Stephanie to tell you a much better detail, a bit more about the origin story, and about kind of why it began and what it is exactly. So in a bit of a nutshell, myCareBase is an integrated marketplace for families to find pre-screened affordable home care providers and a suite of tools to monitor caregiver tasks and senior well-being. So with that, I will pass this over to you, Stephanie. Really glad you could be here today. Welcome to your Founder Chat.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit more about myCareBase. I didn't do it justice at all. So tell us what is myCareBase and what is the origin story? Where did this all begin?
Yeah. So where it all began, I've been in senior living for about 13 years. I actually left a totally different career. I used to practice law, and I left in 2007 to start my own business. And that first business was around helping seniors with a variety of things around making informed decisions and managing their care and planning, helping them with care planning so that they can make informed decisions. And so it was really through that company that I was able to really understand the industry, understand the customer problems and the challenges that families go through when their parent is starting to not be 100% independent. And so fast forward to a few years ago, I really recognized an opportunity, particularly in the realm of home care, to really offer a different model that might suit a large population of seniors better. And that was the genesis of myCareBase. And what we are is a managed marketplace where people can find home care and other senior living providers, where we vet everyone and we actually help people find the right match.
Okay. All right. So if I'm someone who's coming to this platform, what might I be looking for? Why might I come? What do you see people come to myCareBase for the most?
If it's a senior themselves, it's almost always looking for help, either for themselves or for their spouse. And if it's an adult child coming to us, it's almost always for either their own parent or their in-laws. And when it's the adult child coming to us, we've noticed that we can help on a variety of levels because it's not solely just focused on, finding a caregiver for mom or dad, but usually they need advice on a whole host of other issues as well.
Okay, right. All right. So you've been growing and building myCareBase for a few years, you said. What has particularly the last year and a half looked like in the healthcare space that you're in? I can only imagine what it's been like since March 2020 and COVID kind of taking over all the things. What's that been like for you?
It's been challenging, I think, all around for a lot
Yeah.
of industries, not just senior care. But senior care definitely has seen a lot of press,
Mm.
particularly around care facilities. So some of the kind of the trends I'm seeing come out of COVID is certainly more rigor and due diligence by the families in
Mm-hmm.
helping mom or dad make decisions and being careful around, where they're moving to. I think we all remember that during the early part of COVID, a lot of families were kept apart and the adult children couldn't see their parents for sometimes 9 months to over a year.
Yeah.
And so I think that is going to be in our memories for a long time. So I see a lot of caution, due diligence, and research around making any kind of decision regarding their
Mm-hmm.
parents, whether it be moving them or having a caregiver come into the home because that's a new person. And so more due diligence around, where this person works, have they been vaccinated? Um, and one of the things we do in our pre-vetting is we look at all the screening. We also let the customer interview the caregiver and meet them before
Mm.
making the decision. And so I think that's important too, to allow the customer some choice.
And what's it been like to be a founder of a company like yours during this time?
In the initial period, it was tough because there were so many unknowns.
Yeah.
I think in 2021, it's been a lot better than 2020 just because people are now, I guess, to the extent possible, getting used to dealing with COVID and knowing that this is going to be around for a while. The
Mm-hmm.
protocols around managing COVID in senior care are more established than they were
Right.
last year. And people are also a little bit more relaxed about
Right.
getting help that their parent needs. Um, Whereas I think 2020, I sensed a lot of fear and
Mm.
unknown.
Mm-hmm.
2021 is about how do we best manage the situation.
Right. Okay. Very interesting. I can't remember who's in Canada, and I don't know if you've seen this, but speaking to, you were just mentioning more research people are doing, and I saw some research come out showing, to your point about how we were kept away from our loved ones for so long, um, for fear of bringing COVID to them. There's now been research to show that there was more harm done in not spending time with your family than there would have been had you brought COVID to them, or something to that effect. There's been a lot of research I know around like the impact of isolation, um, and I can only imagine um, that I imagine you've seen this as well and heard stories of this as well in your line of work potentially. So I think it's really important what you're doing, and I thank you for for helping in this space. I think it's probably a difficult space to manage for many people for many reasons, and appreciate the work that you do. And I know it's also something that you're very passionate about around elder care and about providing that quality um, for people who are seeking your services. So amazing. Thank you. I'm I know that, as I mentioned or alluded to, that at myCareBase you've been doing a lot of work. I know you're actively fundraising. I want to congratulate you on closing your first U.S. angel investor, which is fantastic, very exciting news, and I know a long road. So there's obviously it's been a difficult time, but you've also been growing and learning and doing some incredible things during this time as well. Can you walk us through a bit of like the business side of what does myCareBase look like today?
Yeah. Well, people who are in the business of marketplaces know, and investors tell me all the time, marketplaces are tough
Mm-hmm.
because you're managing both sides. You're trying to get customers, but you're also managing the supply side, which is in our case caregivers. And so operationally, it's been from a business perspective, it's a bit of a balancing act, and I think that's true of any kind of marketplace business.
Mm-hmm.
But what's come out of it is a real appreciation and a recognition for the need to support equally both sides of the marketplace. So we've talked a little bit about the customer, but um, operationally, we do a lot to support the actual care workers as well,
Right.
because without them, you have nothing. You have no business, you have no quality care to provide the seniors.
Yeah.
And so we've implemented some initiatives this past year to better support the care workers. And this whole, past year and a half to 2 years has been really tough on them as well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them have more than one job. And so the other job that they have has, they've experienced all the pressures of COVID and having to adapt. And some of them have gotten COVID in their work environment or had to deal with severe restrictions. So we're trying to support them in really innovative ways so that they will stay in the industry. I think that's key. So we try to really help them make home care a sustainable career rather than a stepping stone to something else, because we need more good workers to stay in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple of family members and through my husband's side as well that work in this space, and they do need a lot of support. Yes, absolutely. But amazing when you find these incredible care workers. It just changes the lives of the people they work with, which is great. So I know you're actively fundraising right now, which means that you have a plan for the future. So what does that future for myCareBase look like? What is your vision?
So right now we're just in BC. We want to be across Canada, and then eventually into the US. But first things first, we want to expand across Canada and be in multiple provinces next year.
Amazing. Very cool. All right. Yes, people in chat saying, wow, to you having your first US angel investor, to doing this fundraising process, always difficult. Do you have any particular tips or advice specifically for founders in general? But I'm always curious, like, with you actively fundraising right now, do you have any specific advice for founders who are maybe going through their first fundraising process? I know I'm putting you on the spot with this, but just curious if you have any thoughts.
Yeah. So I'll answer in two parts. The first part is the general tip for all founders of early stage businesses is it really does take a village. Don't be scared to ask for help. And in fact, ask for help from anyone. I used to be of kind of the mindset that I wouldn't ask for help unless I could reciprocate. Like I always wanted to, if I'm going to ask someone for something, then I wanted to do something for them. But if someone really believes in your cause and believes in you, they'll want to support you. And I've kind of gotten past that point, knowing that, if someone helps me, I'll remember them in the future, and maybe in the future we can do something for them. But it really does take a village to make anything successful. So get as much help as you need. For us, things took a turn for the better dramatically when I started bringing on advisors, in addition to my board. So I have a board, but then I started bringing in advisors with special expertise in certain areas where my existing team was maybe a little lacking. And that actually helped tremendously. So that would be my tip, is don't be scared to ask for help. Then part two of your question, what advice would I have for founders who are fundraising, is set aside time every single day. Just block it off in your calendar, an hour. The most consuming part of fundraising is actually the research in figuring out who the ideal investors are. But it's worth it to spend the time to determine who your ideal investors are. Where have they invested? Would you want them as an investor and shareholder? And rather than kind of throwing wet towels on a wall and seeing what sticks, try to really shape your round and recruit the investors that you feel can make a difference to your company.
Right. So having a really strategic approach to who you're approaching, and how you're approaching them. And I like that idea of like rounding it out and spending time doing that research. I think that it's interesting when talking to people about fundraising sometimes. It's just like, where can I find investors? I just need to talk to all of them, and haven't really put in that time to think about, well, no, it's a fit between you and the investor as well. And you need to think about kind of what kind of companies they invest in and what stage they invest in, but also who they are as investors, and have that fit there. So I think that's, yeah, absolutely. People saying that's great advice. Absolutely. Fantastic advice. And I think I'm curious as well, you were talking about working with advisors, and it's interesting because I find particularly early stage entrepreneurs we work with often or see come through the pitch events are hesitant to ask for advisors. And there's actually sometimes a bit of fear with even meeting with our advisors and saying, am I too early to even meet with advisors? How do you assess, how did you personally assess where you needed help? You mentioned that it was where you had some there were some I don't know, I can't remember how you phrased it. No, you didn't phrase it as weaknesses on the team, but there were some skill gaps perhaps on the team or knowledge gaps. How did you assess when was the right time to look for advisors and who to look for?
That's a really good question. So in terms of our team, it wasn't so much weaknesses, but more like gaps, because when you're bootstrapping it, you can't have a huge team because we can't pay salary. And so we're a very light but mighty team. But you're going to have gaps. Like that's just the nature of a startup. And so where we looked for advisors, I started off with mentors. So I should maybe talk about that. So it's also important to have mentors that are personal mentors to you as the founder. I consider them kind of like your personal cheerleaders, and they're not necessarily advisors to the company, but they're more there for moral support. And if you can get some seasoned business leaders who kind of believe in you and kind of have this positive spirit about them, I was really lucky to have 2 or 3 really great mentors early on in our origin story, and they helped me through some really tough times. And then when the pandemic hit and we kind of, there was so much uncertainty, like I mentioned before, around, okay, seniors don't really want strangers coming into their home. We don't know when we're going to be able to raise again. We didn't know what the economic kind of landscape was going to be. So in 2020, we actually, right around the early part of the pandemic, I started with a couple of connections that I had, and I asked for intros. And a couple of people were very kind in helping make some personal intros to people who they felt could really make a difference to our company. And so it just kind of snowballed from there. And you don't need a lot of advisors because that's hard to manage as well. But, 1 or 2 key advisors can really make a difference.
Amazing. All right. I love that. And thank you so much for sharing your tips for both for entrepreneurs in general, but also those who are looking to fundraise. I think that's really interesting. So having provided us with this gift of your knowledge, what can we do to support you? What would be your ask of us here as your community?
Well, I guess 2 things. What keeps me up at night is customers and fundraising. So as an early stage company, we're always looking for customers. So if anyone kind of has listened to this and really believes in our cause around helping families be more empowered to direct their own care of their parent, as well as supporting caregivers and earning a living wage, refer people to us because we can really help them find the perfect caregiver. And then in terms of fundraising, we're looking for impact investors who want to invest in companies that are really trying to make a difference in a certain industry, and particularly investors who have experience in marketplaces. Talking about, shaping your fundraising round and who can really help. I would love to have investors who have experience in marketplaces.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll make sure to put those in the show notes so everyone can see that. We'll share and hopefully get you some connections through our incredible community here. Now, you did just mention something that caught my ear, which was talking about living wage supporters. And you were talking about earlier about the importance of taking care of both sides of your, or both customers, both sides of your marketplace, the people behind the marketplace, though. And I know this is something important to you, supporting the carers and this living wage supporter. Can you maybe, for those, if there's anyone here who isn't familiar with the the idea behind living wage, and particularly in this care space. Would you like to kind of provide us a little bit more background about that and how that plays into myCareBase?
Yeah. So living wage generally is a term that takes into account the cost of living in a particular city. So every city has a different living wage, and that's totally separate from kind of the legal minimum wage. It has nothing to
Right.
do with that. So a living wage is a representation of how much someone has to earn to be able to make a living and be able to live reasonably in that city. And
Yeah.
so for Vancouver, last time I checked, it was hovering around the 21, 22 range. Don't quote me on that exactly. And so we want to support care workers in earning above the living wage. So
Mm,
forget minimum wage, that's actually irrelevant. We want care workers to earn above a living wage. And that goes to, um, again, allowing them to make a sustainable career out of this and stay in the
right.
industry. So it's, I look at the whole business as supporting the whole ecosystem, not just the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay. Amazing. So I know there's lots of other topics that you are passionate about. Is there anything else that you particularly wanted to dive into and talk about here today?
I can't think of any. I think we've touched on most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have another couple of minutes, so if anyone in the audience has any questions, otherwise I'm going to just keep asking questions. So if anyone has any questions that you have about the industry that Stephanie's in or about myCareBase, please do jump in. We've heard some really interesting heard a little bit about kind of where myCareBase started, and a little bit about how it's grown and what you've learned over that time and the tips that you have. I was curious actually, and if you would like to answer this, you mentioned how you came from a law background and then you started this company. I think you said 2007, was it? That then kind of turned into or kind of allowed for myCareBase to come out of that from your learnings. I was curious about why you got into senior care though. Where was that shift from lawyer to entrepreneur in
Yeah.
senior care space? I know we only have a couple minutes left, but that also piqued my curiosity if you're willing to share with us
Yeah.
the why.
Um, just personally, I'll just be very honest. When I was a young lawyer and I had just finished law school and I was, all lawyers have to article, and they work typically in a law firm. I knew in the very first year that being a lawyer was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my
Mm,
life. But I was like, okay, well, I just graduated. What am I going to do? I should give it a shot. So I practiced for 1 year in a firm, and a really great opportunity came up for me in-house at a company. So I took it. So I moved in-house, and I really enjoyed the team that I worked with at that company. And I was learning and growing and doing exciting deals and just given a lot of autonomy. And it was just a really great job actually for a long time. So I actually ended up staying in law for a lot longer than I
mm,
expected, for almost 10 years. And then it just got to the point where I realized, there's no better time. It's never going to get easier to take a risk. So if I'm
yeah.
ever going to leave and do something and follow my entrepreneurial dream, I should do it now. So that's what happened in 2006, 2007. And how this idea, my first idea came about actually, was I met someone through a charitable board that I volunteered on, who was in senior care
Mm,
in Quebec. And it just kind of planted a seed in my mind around helping seniors and being able to build a sustainable, viable business model around helping seniors. And it just felt really right at the time. I can't really explain it more than to say it felt really right at the time. Um, since then, I definitely think this industry is my calling.
mm.
I'm meant to be in this industry. I'm meant to somehow create an impact in this industry. So it feels really right.
Well, I love to hear that. And it seems right. Like I don't question that. You are very passionate about it, but also seem comfortable in working in this space and not having come from a healthcare background even, I'm sure you were asked questions in the beginning about that and you had to find advisors along the way, which is always an interesting kind of path for entrepreneurs as well. And I think it's really wonderful what you've done, which I know I've gushed on a lot about. So I'd love to know for people who are as excited as I am about everything that you're doing and in the senior care space and taking care of not just the seniors in the space and the adult children, is that what you called them? Adult children. I'm learning the language, as well as the carers themselves, the caregivers themselves. Obviously, you know so much in the space and you've been an entrepreneur for many years now. So if anyone would like to reach out to you and connect with you to answer one of your asks or to just connect with you personally, where would be a good place for people to find you?
Personally, find me on LinkedIn. Through Volition, you can also get my contact information. I'm okay with you guys giving out my contact, but we're on all the social platforms as well, so you can find myCareBase on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Awesome. Okay. And also everyone can go to mycarebase.com to check out more and learn more about this incredible company. So amazing. I really appreciate you being here. I know you already asked if there's anything, any last words or any last comments. Did I miss anything?
No, it was great. It was really good time. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It was great to get to know you better. Really appreciate you taking this time out of your day to share your story. And I'm excited because I get to be here again next week having another conversation with another incredible founder. So next week I'll be talking to Amr Abu Kajil, who's the founder at Shop Studio Live, which it's a long explanation, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a again boilerplate. They're on a mission to amplify the human aspects of online shopping for millions of e-commerce merchants and shoppers. That's all I'll give you for now. I will be back here same time, same place on September 28th. I was like, oh, next week. That's like, I don't know, September 10th, but apparently it's September 28th. So I will see you then and there. Thank you again, Stephanie. And thank you to everyone who has joined us here live, or if you're here with us on IGTV or YouTube. We appreciate you being here. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.